have nothing against China. I just hate that their leaders are so much smarter than our leaders. 2016, we will not be the world leader anymore. We have been always. But in 2016, China becomes the great economic leader.
Even if Mitt Romney is elected, he says that
maybe you can turn it around.
Well, do you think he could turn it around?
I think we can.
Do you think Mitt Romney can turn it around?
I think he can.
As a line of clothing. Now, where were these made?
These were made, I don't know where they were made, but they were made someplace. But they're great. It's ties, shirts, cufflinks, everything sold at Macy's, and they're doing great. #1 selling tie anywhere in the world.
#1 selling tie anywhere in the world. You wouldn't wear that shirt?
We also have them in white and beautiful white.
Where are the shirts made? Bangladesh.
Well, it's good.
Okay.
We employ people in Bangladesh.
Ties? Where are the ties
made?
Have to work These are beautiful ties.
They are great ties.
The ties are made in where? China? Ties are made in China.
Well, I'll tell you, and you know what, David, in all fairness, I've been very open about that, and not all of them, by the way, but I've been very open about that. Are you okay? Is the
no,
chair
I'm
was
fine.
Made in China.
Yeah, I know.
The chair was made in China.
The chair was made in China.
You buy that at Macy's, by the way.
Let's just shut down the Donald Trump factory in Beijing.
I would love to.
And we'll put up a tie factory in Jamaica, Queens.
I love it.
And we'll make the Donald Trump tie.
I'm for it.
Donald Trump guest hosting Saturday Night Live overnight. There were protesters in the streets, but it didn't seem to bother the presidential candidate, who cracked jokes and even showed off his dance skills. We're going to talk to George Stephanopoulos in just a moment, but first, let's go to ABC's Tom Yamas, who's covering the campaign trail for us this morning. Hi, Tom.
Paula, good morning. So much anticipation going into last night. Trump reminded us within seconds of taking the stage, he's brilliant, he's handsome and rich, but clearly he can laugh at himself. He danced like Drake, and there was even a bounty by a Latino group for an audience member to call him a racist on stage. That actually happened, but not like everyone expected. Overnight, Donald Trump taking center stage.
Donald, you're the most amazing guy. You're brilliant, you're handsome, you're rich, you have everything going. The world is waiting for you to be president. So why are you hosting Saturday Night Live? Why? And the answer is, I have really nothing better to do.
The GOP presidential hopeful hosting Saturday Night Live for the second time. His last appearance in 2004.
Nobody's bigger than me. Nobody's better than me. I'm a ratings machine.
This time, Trump, who's known to joke on the campaign trail.
I never attacked him on his look, and believe me, there's plenty of subject matter right there. That I can tell you.
Bringing politics to late night, making fun of himself, even pretending to live tweet a sketch, aiming his trademark insults like loser and slob to cast members.
Why are people laughing?
Is he tweeting bad stuff about it?
While a preview of his policies in 2018 didn't exactly kill.
Well, you know what? I don't have to get specific. With me, it's just works. You know, it's magic.
His dance moves were an instant hit.
You used to call me on the cell phone.
Outside, protests over the GOP frontrunner's hosting gig. One organization offering $5,000 to any audience member who would shout out criticism at Trump.
Trump's a racist!
Guest Larry David taking them up on it.
What are you doing, Larry?
I heard if I yelled that, they'd give me $5,000.
Respect that.
Deport racism later tweeting, Larry David wins the $5,000 bounty. Joke or not, it was true. Now, Trump won't get too much time to enjoy the laughs. It's back to business. He'll be on This Week later today, then on the campaign trail tomorrow, and the big debate on Tuesday. So far, no words on ratings, but guys, we all know they're going to be huge.
Huge. And we're going to see him take center stage again Tuesday, the next Republican debate.
And that's going to be a huge debate. So many storylines going into that debate with Trump, Carson, Rubio, and Jeb Bush. It's going to be must-watch TV.
Awesome, Tom. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, Tom. I could watch him dancing like Drake on repeat. I may do that today. For more on this, let's bring in ABC News chief anchor George Stephanopoulos, who's going to be hosting This Week later this morning right here on ABC. George, good morning.
Hey, Dan.
Trump, did he hurt himself or help himself?
Hurt himself? No, I don't think so at all. Listen, what's worked for Donald Trump throughout this campaign is the maxim, all publicity is good publicity. He goes out and gets whatever he can out there, and I can't see how this is likely to hurt him. Now, the question is whether it's going to help him. Hard to know, but I don't think it's going to hurt him at all.
You know, one of the things people expected he might do going to the night is to take a swipe at his chief rival, Dr. Ben Carson. Carson is, as you know, facing mounting questions and criticism about how he's relating stories from his past. He fought back at a particularly feisty news conference the other day. What is your take on whether this storyline is hurting Carson?
Well, one of the things that Ben Carson has done is put out a tweet saying that he's raised about $3.5 million at least since these questions about his past were raised by the press. He's going straight at the press, as many of the Republican candidates did in that debate, that CNBC debate a couple of weeks ago. I think it's going to be a question of whether the stories do stand up to further scrutiny and whether they turn out to reveal a pattern of dishonesty or simply, you know, exaggerations that are being trumped up by the press, as Carson argues. And I think that does remain to be seen. But both Trump and Carson, and Marco Rubio is starting to rise as well, are in this phase now where they're going to be getting much more scrutiny. And we saw just yesterday Marco Rubio releasing more of his credit card records from his time in Florida, which he had gotten a lot of questions about as well.
George, thank you. And I want to remind everybody, George has a big show this morning. He's going to be talking to Donald Trump one-on-one, as well as Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders. That's coming up on This Week later this morning right here on ABC. George, thanks again.
Donald Trump is fascinating. Not just his person, but the entire movement that's sprung up around the guy is an amazing political phenomena, whether you agree with him or not. It's a bit easy, I think, to dismiss Donald Trump followers as, oh, they're just a bunch of cranky racist rednecks and no good conservatives. They don't know what they're talking about. And you write them off as fools. I don't think that's quite fair. I think there's something a bit deeper going on here. I think the story of Donald Trump and the story of his popularity is one that unfortunately ends in a paradox. A very dangerous and potentially big paradox with really important implications. So if we try to dig down deeper, what exactly is going on here? I think kind of the starting point everybody agrees on, that the reason Donald Trump is so popular is because people are fed up. And they're fed up for good reason. Okay, so the next natural question to ask is, why are people fed up? And what are they fed up at? And I think people are fed up at the government. The government and the politicians which make it up have not lived up to their promises. They have turned out to be, go figure, spineless cretins who care much more about their reelection than they do the well-being of their constituents. This has been true for a long time, but it's kind of reached a bubbling point in which people say the government is incompetent and we need to clear them out and we need new leadership. Okay. So why is Donald Trump popular? Because people are fed up. Why are people fed up? Because government has been incompetent. Well, let's go one step deeper. Why is government incompetent? Why is it that the government and the political class has failed so miserably? The reason is not a coincidence. It's something that is systemic. Governments are always incompetent and corrupt and counterproductive for economic and for ethical reasons, something I'll get into in a minute. So the reason that people are fed up is because of government failures. And the reason that governments fail is something that's systemic to the system. And here's the paradox. The Donald Trump resolution to the systemic failures of government is to have a stronger government, is to get the right, strong person in office, to centralize power in the hands of somebody like a Donald Trump, to get things done and to tell people what to do, and I'm going to make it happen because I'm going to make it happen. This is very, very dangerous principle, and it's not unique historically. This is how autocrats come to power. Because of the failures of whatever system, whatever political system that these autocrats emerge out of, they make really grand promises, and they're really tough, and they've got thick skin, and they're really fun and enjoyable to listen to, and they connect with their audience. And they say, look, those guys are a bunch of incompetents, and I know the solution. Just give me the power. This is paradoxical, and it is necessarily going to end up in a lot of misery if people are willing to centralize more power into the hands of the government, regardless of who's in charge of it. So you might have an objection to one of the premises that the problem with government is something that's intrinsic to the structure of government. And I won't go into great detail right now. I will certainly in the future. But I say it's twofold. One is economic and one is ethical. So we'll start with the ethical one first. The reason that government causes so much trouble and upsets so many people is because fundamentally government is force. It's a monopoly on force. This is the way that things are going to be done. And if you disagree, you're going to be thrown in jail, or you're going to be shot, or you're going to be taxed. But if you don't pay your taxes, then you're going to be thrown in jail or shot. Ultimately, it is force. What that means is whenever you have government doing anything, it's necessarily coercion. There's a group of people who are almost always in the minority that are being forcefully coerced against their wishes to do something that the majority wants them to do. That's going to cause problems, not only as an ethical problem, but just practically speaking, people are going to be resentful of that. And then there's this grasping for power. Different groups want to grasp this power of force so that they can force their ideas on other people. And then these people get in power, and so they can force their ideas on these people, and they can force their ideas on these people. If these people don't disagree, they're going to jail. It's just this really nasty circumstance in which the only winners are temporary, because once the winners lose their power, then they get coerced. The other reason is economic, and it's just for strict economic reasons that government is by its nature a monopoly. Monopolies are necessarily inefficient. They cause more harm than good, and they're unnecessary. We don't need to monopolize the provision of any service. There's no unique, oh, the postal service must be monopolized because there's something inherent in that good that has to be monopolized. And this is true even though it seems counterintuitive because we're so used to it. This is true in the production of law. There's no reason to think that law has to be produced by a monopoly. I mean, that's concretely not the case, and I'll go into that later. And it's the case for the production of roads, the production of private defense, and so on. For economic reasons, governments are necessarily inefficient and cause more harm than good. So I really worry that the Trump solution, the centralized power in the hands of one person solution, in the shortest of runs, it might not be a bad thing. It might be that, wow, Donald Trump is great and he's going to clear out the inefficient bureaucracy. Yes, that might be true. But what happens when the precedent is set for this massive centralization of authority in one person? What happens to the person who comes into power after Donald Trump? Maybe he's not as good intentioned as the Don. Of course, it's debatable whether or not the Don has a good intention. Let's just say he does. What happens to the person after him or the person after him, right? When the idea is out there that it's okay to have this centralized autocrat calling the shots, that's an extremely dangerous precedent, and I'm afraid it's in the long run, it's not going to solve problems. It's going to create more problems than it solves.
They're remaking Indiana Jones without Harrison Ford. You can't do that. And now they're making Ghostbusters with only women. What's going on? The people of India are going crazy that President Obama was constantly chewing gum. And then on top of that, he took it out of his mouth, put it back. You can't do it. It's disgusting. Rosie's a failure. She's always been a failure. Her shows all go down the tubes. How they thought she'd work on The View, ridiculous. The show is a big, big miss. I watched Russell Brand on television the other night. What the hell was Katy Perry thinking when she married this guy? What a loser he is. Hollywood, no more remakes. We're all tired of remakes. Stop.